Google just unveiled a little bit more information about their upcoming game streaming service. What's up everybody, Brad here back again, and today on Reddit, Google was diving into the details of their upcoming game streaming service called Stadia. If you're not familiar with the service, it's Google's version of xCloud. You're going to be able to buy games and subscribe to a Stadia Pro version or a free service, and you buy your game on the service, and then you can stream it and play it wherever you want on just about any type of device eventually. It's not unusual, especially in this day and age, to have a streaming service, right? We've got the Netflix of Netflix. We've got Hulu's. Everything is streaming, Spotify, Apple Music, and all that stuff. And now we're diving deeper into the game streaming service. And Google on Reddit took the chance to answer some questions, if you will. And so let's just kind of jump in here. Now, the person doing the Q&A his name was Andrei Dorchinachev. I am terrible with names. If you've watched this channel for any more than 5 minutes, you will know that. And so I've pulled out some of the content that I think is more relevant. And if you've been reading every single detail about Stadia along the way, you're probably going to know most of this, but I think there are a few little nuggets in there. So let's just dive in. First question is can you clarify what the free game situation is for Stadia Pro, as it is confusing due to mixed messages? He says, to be clear, Stadia Pro is not the Netflix of games. Like some people have mentioned, a closer companion would be to that of Xbox Live Gold or PlayStation Plus. The Pro subscribers get 4K HDR streaming, 5.1 sound, exclusive discounts, access to some free games, and roughly one free game per month, give or take. Roughly one free is a little odd, because roughly one free, I mean, it's like roughly two free makes sense, because then it can be one or two. So is it 0 or 1? But anyways, they're starting off with Destiny 2. They made a big splash. Second question, are there plans for achievements with the platform? And yes, there are. Achievements are a big thing. Sony has their system. Microsoft obviously has theirs, and Stadia is going to have their own as well. When can we learn more details about the UI? This is kind of a little odd. He says, you'll see the UI in November. Well, obviously, the platform is launching in November, but it doesn't sound like, according to this, we're going to be hearing it anytime soon. He says, for now, you're going to have to trust me. It's looking good. So if you're hoping to see the UI of Stadia, I wouldn't hold your breath. Next question, will there be free-to-play games on Stadia Base? Nope. Stadia Base gives you free access to the state-of-the-art gaming hardware, he says, in our data center, but you're still going to have to spend money on the games you want. What features announced will be available at launch? It's a good question. He says, we'll get the basic functionality at launch, the ability to play games across screens, no waiting for downloads or patches, social, store, and of course, it's not going to be every feature that they announced. They are going to be rolling stuff out. No big surprise there. The features will come, right? They're just trying to get day one done behind them, and then they will constantly improve it, just like any other cloud service that we have used in the past. Here's the good question, though. If the Stadia service is discontinued, we all know that Google has killed a lot of products over the years. Do we know, if anything, what will happen with the game purchase? Alternatively, are there many minimum EOL guarantees that you get the gist of it? Okay, so this is, I'm going to read it verbatim here. He says, we get this a lot, and I hear you. Moving to the cloud is scary. I felt the same way when music was transitioning from files to streaming. I still have all my CDs in the garage, although it's hard to find a CD player these days. The same thing happened with movies and photos and docs and all that other stuff, and it's great, blah, 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 blah. The games you buy on Stadia are yours to play. From day one, we'll support takeout so that you can download your game metadata and including saves if you want to. So this is interesting, because what he's saying here is that if the service is going to die, and he did have some like fluttering up of like, hey, it's like music service and all, but anyways, if you buy a game on Stadia and they kill the service, what he is saying that you can do is that you'll be able to download essentially your progressions and your save file to be able to bring it to that same version of the game, in theory, on another platform. Now, there's a million questions there, assuming that you'd have to go to Steam, and then assuming that you can load all that stuff, and we don't know what the file looks like that it downloads. But according to him, if the service is going to go out, you'll be able to download and take your save data with you. But that doesn't answer the question about actually your games. Because imagine if you have 10 games and you bought them all at $60 a piece, that's $600. that you've invested in Stadia, and then if all of a sudden it's gone and you can just take your save data, I mean, that's great. But at the same time, they're going to have to figure out something with these games, because that is, nobody's going to be happy about that. Nobody. Although you could make the same argument, that I've bought a lot of digital games with the Xbox platform, and if that goes belly up and Microsoft just decides to shut down Xbox, I would be out, well, more than that, thousands of dollars in games at this point. So it's not completely unprecedented, but I think the risk here is that many people are just worried that Google is going to shut this down after a couple years, as they have done many other projects if they don't catch fire. Next question. Will Stadia have its own global chat and friends system, or will it depend on the game developer to implement these? First and foremost, I think games is the main focus of a social platform, so we're investing a lot in social communication safety on Stadia. At launch, you'll be able to manage your friends list, create parties, and use platform-level voice chat. And that's just the beginning. We'll also have a healthy pipeline of social features going forward, so it sounds like the basics will be there on day one that you would expect to be able to play with your friends. I like this question. Does the controller that comes with Stadia, right, if you go buy that Founders Edition, support Bluetooth audio, and can I use Bluetooth headphones on Stadia? The Stadia controller comes with a headphone jack for wired audio, but does not support Bluetooth audio at launch in November. Interesting. So what it sounds like is that the controller does support Bluetooth, but is not going to support Bluetooth audio at launch. If you're playing on a computer or a Pixel phone, you can connect a Bluetooth headset directly and use that in Stadia. Next question. Is there anything being done to combat data caps, or is it purely trying to convince, or is it up to us to convince our ISPs $50 extra a month just for me to play games and not have a data cap isn't really worth it? This is a non-answer. He says, I can't predict the future, but I've seen that ISPs adapt in the past. Really? When have they? He says, I saw it with YouTube. I don't quite understand how he saw ISPs adapt other than giving us more bandwidth, but that's not a data cap. Data caps are more of a new-ish thing, especially here in the US. So it's a non-answer. Can you discuss a little bit more about plan for families? This is a good question too. Like that of Google Play Music and YouTube. It says, I guess you're asking about sharing content with family members. Yes, we will enable family sharing early next year. We're working on it, but it won't be ready in November. Need a bit more time. That is good. And he says, we'll also have a parental dashboard to give parents control over their kids' gaming experience. Also very good. So that is definitely a big thumbs up. When can we expect support for non-standard resolutions like 3040 by 1440 or 3440 by 1440 or 3840 by 1080? It says we're covering the most widely used resolutions first because, to be honest, we have to start somewhere. You can expect more options as Stadia gets released around the world. Any chance of a Steam partnership? And he said, great question. My PR guy will kill me, but he says we're always evaluating options, so nothing there. Will there be mod support for Stadia? In November, no. But he says we would like to add it in the future, and we're working with developers to figure out how to do this. Next question says, if you're streaming a game to your phone and you're using the Stadia controller, does your phone and the Stadia controller have to be connected to the same Wi-Fi? Yes, they do. They cannot be on separate networks. And then the last relevant question, it says, will there be any kind of support for alternative inputs like gyro or wheel pedal sit-ups or Xbox or PlayStation controllers? He says if it's a HID compliant controller, we will support it, and we're adding more controllers as time goes on. So, what did we learn here? Well, we learned a bunch of stuff, but at the same time, we still don't know a lot. For example, the family stuff, family sharing is actually a pretty big deal. If you have multiple people in your household, it sounds like you're not going to have to buy the game multiple times to have yourself and many other people playing it. But what we don't know about family sharing yet is if I buy one copy of the game, can me and my spouse, my wife, play it at the same time, or can me and my kid play it at the same time? That we don't know yet. There was another question that was asked about supporting mobile devices other than the Pixel 3, because let's face it, a lot of people have Galaxy phones, and they also have iPhones, right? So there's the iOS, and the Galaxy phones will obviously support it, but they said out of the gate, it's going to be Pixel, and they will eventually expand it to other devices. I'm curious to see, the biggest question for me is how you can move around different services. If that is actually a feature, that could be a really critical component for Stadia, saying that, hey, you can buy our games here. You know what? If you want later down the road, you can take them to Steam. That's a pretty big deal. We haven't seen or heard anything like that from Microsoft yet, and so that would be pretty neat from xCloud or Stadia, but I'm not getting too invested in that. We will see what happens. The lack of Bluetooth audio directly from the controller is a bit disappointing, mostly because I typically play with wireless headphones like this, And the fact that that won't be supported from the controller is kind of a pain in the butt. Yes, I know you can pair these things to a phone, but typically I just want them paired to like a controller because I have multiple headsets paired to a phone, and it's just one more thing you gotta navigate. Again, that's doable. I'm not too concerned about that. The achievements look interesting, and so far Google has shown solid support, right? There's still a lot of questions around first-party IP. That is going to be the killer thing, because again, why would you go stream a game if you already have a high-end PC? Somebody did ask a question about who it's targeted at, and they totally dodged the question because again, like for example, this PC I'm on has a 1080 Ti in it. Why would I want to stream a game when I could play it locally much better? I understand why you'd want to play that on your phone. We know the story here. Anyways, folks, hats off to Google for doing this. They dripped out a little bit more information. They did leave us one thing hanging out there. They said, hey, we're going to be talking at a Connect event here in the near future. And they said you won't have to wait too long to learn a lot more. But as more information comes in about Stadia, Google's game streaming service, you can keep it locked here, and I will try to keep you updated. That's all we got for now, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you right back here next time.